Hi, welcome back to Joe Blogs. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about the Russian economy. One of the major problems we've had over the course of the last 12 months in terms of analysing what's happening in the Russian economy is that the Russian authorities have been limiting the amount of data that they're prepared to release. So that means that we only have a very limited supply of official data. And as the data has been highly controlled and limited by the Kremlin, questions have been raised as to whether or not the data is 100% accurate. So in today's video, I want to share with you some alternative data that has been put together by independent sources. The first of these is a research agency that's used data provided by the European Space Agency and artificial intelligence to look at the levels of air pollution in Russia to evaluate the levels of industrial output. And the second set of data has been put together by the European Central Bank and looks at the underlying fundamentals in terms of the level of trade that Russia has been involved with and compares that to the official data that's been published by the Kremlin. And once we've been through these data sets, I'll provide you with my summary as to what I think is actually going on in the Russian economy right now and what the implications of this are for Russia over the course of the next 3 to 6 months. Quantcube Technology is a company that's headquartered in Paris, France, and was created in 2013 by two entrepreneurs with a strong desire to build products by leveraging artificial intelligence and big data. Over the last 10 years, the company has expanded to become one of the most advanced cross-sectoral research and development companies in the world. The research that the company produces has over 14 billion alternative data points, provided by data feeds such as social media, professional networks, satellite imagery, blogs, transportation, and consumer reviews. The business has developed a wide range of strategic partnerships, and one of those is the European Space Agency, which owns and operates a myriad of satellites that provide both real-time and historic satellite imagery and also a lot of data about the atmosphere. And Quantcube has used artificial intelligence and other research techniques to analyse the satellite imagery and pollution levels coming out of Russia. This bird's eye view of Russia, which has been put together using the tropospheric monitoring instrument, which detects gases like nitrogen dioxide, ozone, methane and others, shows that the volume of air pollutants emitted by Russia's factories has declined significantly. One of the key areas that Quantcube has focused in on is the amount of nitrogen dioxide in the air, which signifies the amount of gas, diesel and coal being burnt. Over the last 6 months, the readings show that urban pollution in Moscow and St. Petersburg has ticked higher, but pollution in industrial regions has fallen 1.2% in the 6 months to April and is 6.2% lower year on year, which provides a very strong indication that the level of industrial output has fallen by at least those percentages. And it's interesting to note that Russia's official government data shows that industrial production climbed by 1.2% for the year to March 2023. Additional satellite data that Quantcube have analysed also shows that the automotive sector, construction, oil and gas, and even the defence industry are emitting less pollution. Meanwhile, the thermal power and metal industries are polluting more. So what this analysis is telling us is that the level of pollution in the atmosphere over Russia indicates a 6.2% fall in industrial output year on year. However, the Russian authorities are claiming that industrial output increased by 1.2%. So that represents a swing factor of 7.4%. And obviously a swing of that nature would have a huge impact on both Russia's economy and the level of income. As we're discussing in today's video, the invasion of Ukraine has had a huge impact on the economy of Russia, but it's also impacted on the global economy and returns on investments. And trying to find a balanced portfolio of investments at times when market conditions are volatile is challenging. And 2022 saw the worst performance since 2008 for the stock market. And Goldman Sachs have recently stated that the market is heading nowhere in 2023. As a result of this, fund managers are now looking into low correlation assets because even if markets flatline this year, these assets can continue to climb. And according to a recent report by Citibank, of these assets, the one with the lowest correlation is art. Now you may be thinking that art as an investment is only available to billionaires. However, Masterworks has come up with a creative structure that lets you invest in multi-million-dollar paintings without breaking the bank. And since Masterworks started trading, they've built a track record of 13 exits, all of them profitable. So in view of these dynamics, it's no wonder that Masterworks has seen over 650,000 investors trying to gain access. And as a result of that, there is now a wait list. Now, I want to make it very clear that I'm not providing investment advice, and before you make any investment, you need to do your own research. However, if you are interested in investing in Masterworks, then Joe Blogs viewers have exclusive VIP access to their latest offerings, which you can check out by clicking the link in the description below. The European Central Bank is the central bank of the 20 countries of the European Union that use the euro. Now, you may be sitting there thinking, I thought there were 27 countries in the European Union, and you'd be absolutely right, because there are 7 countries that don't actually use the euro as their official currency. This map shows the 27 countries of the European Union, which are all shown in blue. They've also got a number of countries that have applied to join the European Union, and that list includes Ukraine, Turkey, Moldova, Serbia, Montenegro, North Macedonia and Albania. And there are also 3 other potential candidates in Georgia, Bosnia-Herzegovina and Kosovo. And this map shows the 7 countries in the European Union that don't use the euro. So they are Denmark, Sweden, Poland, Czech Republic, Hungary, Romania and Bulgaria. However, as you can see from the dark green colouring, Bulgaria is due to introduce the euro on the 1st of January 2025. Now, interestingly, as you can also see on this map, there are 6 countries in Europe that are not part of the European Union, but are actually using the euro as their official currency. And they are Kosovo and Montenegro, both in Eastern Europe, San Marino and Vatican City, which are 2 very small countries located close to Italy, Monaco in the south of France, and Andorra in the north of Spain. Anyway, hopefully you found that currency lesson interesting. Coming back to the European Central Bank, apart from setting the official rate of interest and all of the policies for all the countries that are using the euro, the European Central Bank also provides a large amount of financial research and analysis. As part of this analysis, the ECB has put together an alternative indicator which tracks a variety of economic indicators to look at the levels of business that Russia is currently doing. And the reason that the ECB has been doing this is that they want to put together a tracker that is independent from the data being provided directly by Russia. So basically what they're doing is looking at the wider economic indicators and seeing whether or not the numbers make sense. The ECB has been making use of goods exports from Russia's main trading partners to Russia based on data from 38 respective national authorities. They've also been using Russia's PMI index, the Purchasing Managers Index, from S&P Global, and vehicle sales from the Association of European Businesses. In terms of the data coming directly from the Bank of Russia, they've taken data on loan volumes to private and corporate entities, as well as the volume of financial transactions going through the national payment system. The ECB has also been gathering data on real estate prices and sales listings of housing units in the primary and secondary markets from one of the largest real estate listing websites in Russia. They've collected data on private customers' spending on services, corporate customer retail sales, and the number of active sales terminals among corporate customers from Sberbank, the largest bank in Russia. The ECB has also been using Google data to gauge internet search activity in Russia related to industrial output and unemployment concerns. To track consumer spending trends, they've been using FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods, index from a commercial consumer panel of Russian marketing research firm Romir. The ECB is also monitoring satellite-based data, which looks at pollution across Russia's 15 most populous regions, as well as information on Russian domestic and international air traffic. The combination of all of this data has allowed the ECB to put together a tracker and compares the data that they've compiled against the official figures that have been released by Russia. The grey bar charts on this graph show the official Russian results. The yellow line shows the ECB's domestic activity tracker for its 6 main indicators, and the blue line includes every indicator that we just talked about. And the ECB's summary is that their domestic activity tracker points to a sharp contraction of economic activity in March 2022, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, after the initial decline, activity stabilised over the summer, which was reflected in the official data on industrial production and retail sales. However, in recent months, official output indicators have remained stable or even improved, buoyed by the manufacturing relating to the war effort. However, as you can see from the blue line, this stands in contrast with the ECB's tracker, which has gradually declined, signalling a loss of momentum in the Russian economy compared to the official statistics. The ECB has summarised that the divergence likely reflects that its activity tracker picks up developments in private domestic demand, where the effects of sanctions seem to materialise to a larger extent, and to a lesser extent, public demand in domestic warfare-related sectors. And this table breaks out the contributions to the ECB tracker dating back to January 2022. And you can see from the coloured sections that the main contributors are broken down into three components. The blue section is household consumption, so private individuals. The yellow section is business activity, and the green section is real estate. The grey section is basically other, just as a balancing figure. And what this shows is that from March 2022 onwards, the contraction in activity in the Russian economy was largely driven by a fall in household consumption. In March, April, May, June, July, August and September, that fall in household consumption represented the vast majority of the fall in Russia's economy. However, as you can see in October, November, December and January, the contribution in terms of the fall from household consumption actually fell relative to the falls in business activity and real estate. So there has been a continued fall in the level of household activity. However, in terms of percentages, it now represents less than half of the fall in the wider economy. So what this tells us is that business activity is now falling. And as you can see from the ever-growing green section, real estate activity has fallen dramatically. And in terms of taking a step back and analysing what this actually tells us, it basically means that the level of imports into the Russian economy have fallen dramatically over the course of the last 12 months. And of course, this makes sense because the sanctions that have been applied against Russia have come from a lot of the countries that were exporting goods that are consumer goods that people were buying. So there has been a big fall in household consumption. So in terms of putting all of that data together, this chart, which dates back to January 2018, shows the movements in the level of consumption. The green line represents the official figures released by Russia, so they've been published by Rosstat. The yellow line is the ECB's alternative tracker, which just looks at the 6 main indicators, and the blue line includes all of the indicators. And I think this analysis is really interesting. If we go back to 2019 and look at the yellow and the green lines, you can see that the trend in the domestic activity that the ECB is monitoring actually moves ahead of the official statistics. And that makes sense because you're picking up live data as to what's happening on the internet, what's going on with Google, internet searches, transactions that are moving through the bank, all of that sort of information. So that's real-time data. So that really should be ahead of what the official published statistics are. And you can see that at the start of 2020, as the economy started to slow down as the result of all of the lockdowns from the COVID-19 period, the yellow line is below the green line. So the domestic activity tracker was telling us that things were slowing down before the official statistics were released. And on the reverse side of that, in the second half of 2020, when the lockdown started to be released and all of that pent-up consumer demand started to come through into the economy, you can see that the yellow line is above the green line, which indicates that people were doing a lot of things online, they were buying things, they were doing all sorts of transactions before the official statistics showed that that was happening. So the yellow line does give us a really good heads up as to what's likely to happen over the course of the next 3 to 6 months. If we now move forward to 2021, you can see that the yellow and the green lines were virtually identical. There isn't really much of a gap between the two of them. However, if you look at what's happened over the course of the last 12 months, the yellow line has dropped below the green line. So that tells us that the levels of activity indicate a slowdown. And you can see from the trend of the yellow line that that slowdown is continuing. And if you look at the blue line, which takes into account all of the indicators, there is a clear distance between the official figures and what's happening in terms of all of the activity. So the overall summary here is that the level of business activity is significantly lower than the official statistics being released by Russia, and the trend and the gap between the two lines indicate that it's likely that the official figures should continue falling over the course of the next 3 to 6 months. And in terms of what's driving those trends currently, it's the stagnation in real estate prices and the fall in activity in the real estate market, which is really starting to hurt the Russian economy. So what's the summary and conclusion today? Well, I wanted to post this video because one of the frustrations that we've all had over the course of the last 12 months is the lack of real data that's being published by Russia. Very shortly after the invasion of Ukraine, the Russian authorities decided to stop publishing detailed information as to what was happening in the economy. They said that it was because they didn't want the West to have all of this data, which could be used against them in terms of future sanctions. However, the big question as soon as they stopped providing that data was whether or not they were doing it to mask what was actually going on in the economy. So in today's video, I wanted to share with you some alternative ways of analysing what's happening in Russia. Now, as we saw from the Quantcube analysis, they've been looking at all of the air pollution in Russia over the course of the last 12 months. The European Space Agency provides all of that really detailed information, and Quantcube have been able to take that, feed it through using artificial intelligence, machine learning, all of the things that you've been reading about in the press. And you may well have been thinking that artificial intelligence was of no relevance to you. You're not interested in ChatGPT, you don't want to write a report or an essay or a dissertation for university, so what relevance is artificial intelligence? And I think what this shows is that AI is a really useful tool across a wide variety of different sectors, and is a really useful tool in terms of research. In the past, it would have taken analysts months to be able to analyse all of the satellite imagery, to be able to compare what it looked like previously to what it looked like now, and then to be able to dig down into that data and look at the different types of pollution and analyse exactly what was going on would have been a really big task. However, with artificial intelligence and machine learning, you can feed all of this data into the software and get some really useful results. And what we've seen from today's analysis is that the levels of pollution in Russia are significantly lower than they were this time last year. Over the course of the last 12 months, there has been a 6.2% fall in pollution coming out of the industrial regions. So that gives us a very strong indication that there's been a fall in industrial output of at least that percentage. And that figure is a complete contrast to Russian official data, which shows that industrial production has increased by 1.2%. Now, you may be thinking, well, maybe Russia has just come up with better ways of doing things. They're just producing less pollution these days, and they're producing just as many things. However, that's not really the way industry works. Whilst everybody is moving towards zero carbon and less emissions, the reality of the situation is that for the vast majority of industry, they're still using fossil fuels, they're still using old techniques, and it's still generating large amounts of pollution. That's why a lot of people are monitoring pollution to see exactly what's happening. So we know from the facts provided by the available data for the atmosphere that the levels of pollution in Russia have fallen, which is a great thing from an environmental point of view, but is bad news in terms of the level of industrial output. So it does put a major question mark over those figures that have been published by Russia. And the second set of data that we've looked at today has been provided by the European Central Bank. They've been analysing a wide variety of different indicators that are publicly available. And what that data is showing us is that the levels of activity coming out of the Russian economy are lower than the figures that are being published officially by Russia. And as we saw from the charts that we looked at, the level of activity gives us an advanced indicator as to what's likely to happen going forward. We saw that in the COVID period, when activity was falling, the indicators told us it was happening quicker than the official statistics. And when the economy bounced back, the indicators told us ahead of time that everything was getting better. And what we're seeing right now is that those indicators tell us that things are getting worse in the Russian economy. There is a significant gap between where the indicators are telling us the economy should be and where the official statistics are saying it is. So once again, this raises a question as to whether or not the official figures that are being published by Russia are accurate. So the overall summary of today's video is that the independent analysis being done on the data coming out of Russia indicates that there's a strong possibility that the figures being published by Russia are overstated. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's episode, and maybe it's changed your view on artificial intelligence and made you think that possibly it could be useful for a variety of different things that you hadn't even thought about. It maybe has also shown you that there are different ways of looking at data. If you've liked what I've said today, then please give me a thumbs up. Thank you for watching this video all the way through to the end, and here's something to put a smile on your face.